called today, but I think about you every day. Najua nilitoa, yeah. I take the blame. Juu tangu iyo day, I've never been the same. Find me at B&D of late kila weekendi. Nimekosana na wengi, lakini sisi I'm regretting. I know you know me well, usikate juu niko mlevi. Please don't hang up on me, niache niseme ukweli. I've been upset cause no one loves me better. Hata wanipende aje na wapende.
So welcome back. Apologies, there was a bit of a delay, but nonetheless, we are glad that you are with us, and I'm happy that you're watching this particular live. There was a bit of an interruption, but it's because there was a bit of an interruption, but it's because of the computer went off, and I had to put it on, and there was a bit of a challenge there. Nonetheless, welcome back. This is a Swahili classes for the weekend, and we get to connect every other weekend. And the hope is to learn Swahili and also to enjoy as we do so, because I do believe there is something new to learn every time when we are in class. There's something new to learn, and that you can always feel free to ask questions and also connect with us on our different social media platforms. It's Black Hot Fire on YouTube, Black Hot Fire on Instagram, Black Hot Fire also on Twitter. And you can also check out Keith Newsome on various platforms. And it's always a delight to have you tuning in. In Swahili, we do say karibu. We normally do say karibu. And if someone wants to emphasize that they invite or they welcome you so much, then they would say karibuni sana. They would say karibuni sana. Sana is just for the emphasis. So if someone says sana, basically it's just for the emphasis, and they are saying that you are much welcome. So I would say karibuni sana or karibu sana to our class, and we do hope that you get to learn something with us. If you do have a question, feel free to interject at any point. You can interject and ask a question. Maybe perhaps it would have to do with anything that we get to learn here. You can always feel free to interject, and you can ask any question. Uh, the questions in Swahili, we normally do call them maswali. Maswali. These are the questions in Swahili. We do say maswali. And if it's one question, we do say swali. If it's one question, we would say swali. If it's many questions, we simply do say maswali. Maswali. So if someone has one question, someone would actually tell you, uliza swali moja. Uliza swali moja. If someone says uliza swali moja, they simply mean ask one question. Ask one question. So we were learning about nouns. This is the Swahili grammar. We were learning about nouns, and we did say for nouns we do say majina. Majina. Majina simply means the names of places, the names of things, the names of ideas, the names of yeah, they could be ideas. So when you talk about something like a journey, for a journey, you would actually say safari. You would actually say safari for a journey. If you're talking about something, for example, you're talking about a tree, you would therefore then say mti. You would say mti. You would say mti. But there are noun classes which we shall get to be learning. Noun classes, and we have talked about them. These noun classes, they do include the wa class of noun. We do have the me class of noun. We do have the e class of noun, and all these noun classes, they are 18 in total. They are nine, actually. They are nine, but we do have the singular form and also the singular form and also the plural form, and therefore, when you do a total of that, there are actually 18 of them. For the wa class of noun, for the wa class of nouns in Swahili, we do say these are all the nouns that start with the consonant in their singular, and then they start with the syllable wa in their plural. So you would say, for example, mkulima, wakulima. Mkulima is one farmer. If you're talking about a farmer, for example, mkulima hodari. If you do say mkulima hodari, then that would be a very popular farmer, a very popular farmer. But if you're talking about the plural sense of that, then you would say wakulima hodari, wakulima hodari, wakulima hodari. That is simply how you would say it. If you're talking about a student, then you would say mwanafunzi. You'd actually say mwanafunzi. But if you're talking about many students, if you did have many students, then you would say wanafunzi, wanafunzi. So for example, you're talking about a very popular student, you would say mwanafunzi bora. If you're talking about many students, you would say wanafunzi bora, or wanafunzi bora. But for wanafunzi bora, This is simply when you're talking about many students, many students. So that falls in the wa class of noun. It falls in the wa class of noun when you're talking about many students. This is for people. So mwanafunzi, this is a student. Mwalimu, this is a teacher. If you're talking about a farmer, you'd say mkulima. And if you're talking about, for example, a visitor, you did have one visitor, you would say mgeni, mgeni. That is a simply for one visitor. You would say mgeni. But if it's for many visitors, you would say wageni. For many visitors, you would say wageni for visitors. One visitor is mgeni. For many visitors, you would actually say wageni, wageni. And if you're talking about, for example, a cook, you're talking about a cook maybe, then you would say mpishi. You would say mpishi. Mpishi is for one cook. If you're talking about many cooks, then you would say wapishi. If you're talking about many cooks, you would say wapishi. Wapishi. You would say wapishi if you're talking about many cooks. But then again, if you're talking about things that are inanimate, inanimate objects. If you're talking about inanimate objects, for example, a pen, this is just an inanimate object, then you would say kalamu, kalamu. And you might also say, for example, about a seat. A seat. A seat is kitty, K-I-T-I. A seat is kitty, K-I-T-I. But if you're talking about many seats, then you would say viti. You would say viti. So for one, it's kitty, but for many, you would say viti. For one is kitty, for many, you would say viti. And therefore, that would actually fall in the key V class of noun. It would fall in the key V class of noun. The key V class of noun is not difficult to understand. You would have inanimate objects, many inanimate objects falling in that particular class. I've given an example of kisu in previous classes. Kisu. Kisu is K-I-S-U. Kisu. It's K-I-S-U. And you would actually say kisu kimoja, that is for one knife. So kisu kimoja, that is for one knife. But if you're talking about many knives, you would say visu, visu, V-I-S-U, visu, visu. And for example, if you are also talking about things like a stick, you're lifting up a stick, you would say kijiti, kijiti for a stick, kijiti, K-I-J-I-T-I, that is kijiti. But if you're talking about many sticks, you would say vijiti, vijiti. The same thing happens even for a matchbox. In many households, they still use the matchbox. You lighten up something, and then you're trying to light a fire. You would say kiberiti, kiberiti. Kiberiti is for one matchbox. One matchbox is kiberiti, kiberiti. If you're talking about many matchboxes, then you would say viberiti, viberiti for many matchboxes. The same thing would also happen if you're talking about maybe perhaps a butterfly. One butterfly is known as kipepeo. Kipepeo. Kipepeo is K-I. Kipepeo is K-I. Let me just put it down. Kipepeo. 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 K-I. K-I. P-E-P-E-O. That is for a butterfly. That is for a That is for a butterfly. For butterfly, you would say kipepeo. Kipepeo for a butterfly. Kipepeo. But if you're talking about many butterflies, then that would be vipepeo. That would be vipepeo. That would be vipepeo. So kipepeo for one. If you're talking about many, you say vipepeo. If you're talking about maybe perhaps a thing that is mostly inanimate objects, they fall in the key V class of noun. So this is K-I and V-I. K-I and V-I. That is the second noun class. Remember, the first one is the wa, wa, or the wa. The wa or the wa. That is the first noun class. The second one is the key V. The second one, you don't have to forget, it's the key V. Yesterday, when we were in class, we were learning about how you get to do simple dialogues in Swahili. You're trying to introduce yourself. You're trying to make friends. You're trying to connect with people. what happens is that you get to introduce yourself. You're trying to introduce yourself. Sorry about that. So when you are trying to introduce yourself, you would simply start with hujambo, which is for hello, and then you proceed to say jina langu. Jina langu is simply my name. You would say jina langu. You would say, for example, jina langu ni Spite. Jina langu ni Spite. That is for your name. If you're talking about maybe, for example, where you're coming from, you would say hujambo, jina langu ni Spite, nimetoka Nairobi. That would be nimetoka Nairobi. So hujambo, jina langu ni Spite, nimetoka Nairobi. And then you would say wewe je. Wewe je simply is how about you. Wewe je is how about you. How about you. And then they would respond and say jina langu ni Wilson or Alex or Mary na nimetoka Dubai, or nimetoka Chicago, nimetoka Dakar, nimetoka Johannesburg, wherever they're coming from, they would say nimetoka, and then they would say whatsoever particular place that they are coming from. And it's not even difficult to remember. You say nimetoka Dallas, Texas. So for example, if you're introducing yourself and you're coming from Dallas, Texas, then you would say nimetoka Dallas, Texas. Habari, jina langu ni Spite, nimetoka Dallas, Texas. If you're not coming from those particular areas, you would of course say jina langu ni Spite, nimetoka Nairobi, nimetoka Nairobi. All ninaitwa is I am known as. Habari is habari yako. You say habari yako is how are you. Habari yako, and then they would respond and say nzuri, or they can respond and say salama. If someone responds and they say salama, then that is they mean well. Salama means okay, salama means well, salama means safe. So they would respond and say that they are safe. So if someone says habari yako, and then you respond and say salama, it simply means that you are safe. If you say hello to someone and you would say hujambo, which is hello, then you will proceed to say habari yako. So I was just saying that if you're trying to introduce yourself, So the word you would say is hujambo, this is hello. And then you would say habari yako. Habari yako is how are you? They would respond and say salama. They might respond and say nzuri. They might respond and say njema. Njema means okay. So any of those particular answers, they're fine. But if you're talking about the greetings in the coastal Swahili context, they would say shikamo. Shikamo is also a greeting, and then you would respond and say marahaba, marahaba, shikamo, marahaba. But in the context of urban, not in the coastal area, but in urban places, they would say habari, or they would say jambo, or someone might say mambo. Mambo is simply how are things, and then you say poor, or you might say nzuri, or you might say salama. If someone says mambo, you can respond and say salama. You can respond and say salama. This is Swahili classes for the weekend with the Black Hot Fan Network, media for the 21st century. It's always a delight to have you tuned in and join us in class. We never take your company for granted. And as always, remember, you can always interject. You can ask a question. You can interject at any point. You can ask a question. And I will be more than glad to respond. I will be more than glad to respond to any question that you might like to ask. It might have to do with anything that we have learned in class today. It would have to do with anything that you have learned in class today, or maybe perhaps something that you have had an interest in, and you wanted to know what it means. You might want to know what this and that means. These days, we do have many platforms where you can learn and improve on your English, on your Swahili. you can use a Duolingo app. The Duolingo app, it helps you get those translations, right? So if you're trying to know, maybe find out what you call a phone, a phone. In Swahili, we do say simu. We do say simu in Swahili. Simu in Swahili. And maybe perhaps you check that on your Duolingo app and it would help you just get better in the language. The main reason why we learn Swahili is because we do believe that this is the most prolific language and it's one of the easiest languages to learn. It has 5 vowels and also the consonants. And then from that, we do have, the special class of consonants. And it's not even difficult. It has a flow, it has words with alternating, it has syllables with alternating vowel sounds. The words in Swahili, they are made up of syllables with alternating vowel sounds. For example, kitabu. Kitabu simply means a book. If you were to say katiba, katiba means a constitution. If you were to say karatasi, karatasi simply means a paper. So what you do find is that all these words in Swahili, they are made up of syllables with alternating vowel sounds. And that is, it makes Swahili one of the easiest languages to learn. It doesn't have cluster consonants, so you will not find like DH, TZ, in the same word without having vowels in between. So there has to be those vowels. But what you happen to realize is that we also do have the International Day of Swahili, and Swahili is actually celebrated. It is celebrated every other. It is celebrated in May 17th, right? Let me just confirm. Swahili Day, International Day of Swahili. Let me confirm. So the International Day of Swahili is actually celebrated on the 7th of July. Yes, that is what I was looking for. It's actually celebrated on the 7th of July. And every other year on the 7th of July, we get to celebrate Swahili. Click that. On the 7th of July every year, we get to celebrate the significance of Swahili. It has been marked or set apart as the International Day of Swahili. Apologies. I was just saying that Swahili is marked, the significance of Swahili is actually highlighted all over the world, and we do have the International Day of Swahili. And this International Day of Swahili, we have seen, year in, year out, the numbers of Swahili speakers around the world increase. For example, if you're talking about South Africa, in South Africa, customer, we have not had many people speaking Swahili. But recently, there was a memorandum signed between the government of Kenya and that of South Africa so that you can have Kenya Swahili tutors train people Swahili in South Africa. And also, when we did have the former president of the former president of Tanzania, his name was John Magufuli. He was advocating for the adoption of Swahili even for the SADC countries. I'm talking about the Southern African Development Cooperation countries, such as Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, and others, to also adopt the use of Swahili so that they would have more people learn the language and also use the language, which would also help them get better in terms of the understanding of this beautiful language. So happen to realize what happens is that with time, people are actually out there and they are learning more of how they can speak with this language, and they can even be better at it. So what happens is that over time, people have gotten better and they have had an interest in terms of learning the language. And you too can also join in that particular movement. And you can also learn the language through just getting to connect with Swahili speakers and also training. You can learn it with your friends. You can learn it with friends. You can learn it with your family. And there are so many other ways in which you can be able to learn and get better in Swahili. simply by just connecting with more Swahili speakers. And also, hanging out with people who have an interest in Swahili, because language is a mode of communication, and you are not communicating with yourself, you're communicating with other people. So you want to keep on learning and practicing this beautiful language, so that you can get better at it. It is a language of commerce, and it's the official language in Tanzania. Is the national language right here in Kenya, and therefore, if we were to see more countries, even I believe Somalia, they have also had an interest, and they have also made the language of Swahili included in their curriculum, which is actually a positive move in the right direction. And we hope to see more countries adopting the language, and also more people being, learning the language. So we have five vowels once again. And for a recap for today, what I would say is that we have learned about the five vowels, and we were focusing on one vowel, the vowel U. For the vowel U, we have five of them, which is A, E, O, U. For the vowel U is also used to represent the second person singular. The second person singular, that would be you. The second person singular would be you. So for example, if you are going to the market, we say U naenda sokoni. U naenda sokoni. The other use for that is used in the ones that will have intangible element. For example, pain, we would say uchungu for pain. For pain, pain is intangible. We would say uchungu. If we're talking about life, we would say uhai. Life is intangible, so therefore we would say uhai. If we're talking about the truth is also intangible, so it's say ukweli, ukweli. If you're talking about sickness or disease, you would say uh, ugonjwa, ugonjwa, ugonjwa. So we have, if you're talking about the lies, we would say uongo. So the vowel O, this is the final vowel. When I can use the vowels using my finger, this is the final vowel, and it represents all those particular words that get to have an intangible, the nouns with an intangible nature, the nouns with an intangible nature. That is exactly how they are. We had a bit of a hit with our class, but with our stream. But once again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us for the stream for today. We never take your company for granted, and we do hope that you can also share these videos with your friends and also with your colleagues, so that at the next class we can be more, and we can learn together Swahili. As you know, the more the merrier. That is what we do say, the more the merrier. If we are many here, then we can be able to learn Swahili much more easier, and it will be even more interesting if we are many and we are interactive. For now, I want to sign out, and I just wish you a happy and a productive week ahead. Make sure you join us in our subsequent show next week on Saturday and also on Sunday. For now, it's me, Homeboy Spec, signing out. Till next time, I want to say, go ahead. Make sure you stay positive, stay optimistic wherever you are, your endeavors are for the new week. Make sure you approach them with utmost gratitude, utmost optimism, and also a whole lot of enthusiasm, because positive thinking, positive minds, positive thinking really just gives a positive life. You cannot have a positive life with negative thinking. That is always what I do say. So if you think positive, then the outcome will most probably be very, very positive as well, because we do have the laws of the universe, and whatever you focus on, wherever your focus goes, then your energy goes. And if you focus on the negative, then your energy goes in that particular direction. If you focus on the positive, then your energy goes in that particular direction. And that is just the way the world works. So much peace and love. Till next time, I want to wish you a productive week. For me, I would say thank you so much. And in case you want to shoot us an email, you can write to blackoffireafrica@gmail.com, and we will be more than glad to respond to you. We will be more than glad to engage in matters Swahili, and in matters anything else that have to do with us as an African people globally, or as a melanated people globally. We would be interested to get into that. But for now, we shall wind it up. We shall wind it up at that particular point. Remember, Swahili is a very, very easy language. 5 vowels: the A, E, O, U. Those are the 5 vowels: the A, E, O, U. And when you do have these 5 vowels, the A, E, O, U, then you have all the letters of the English alphabet constituting the Swahili consonants, apart from X and Q. That is everything that you need to remember. And apart from that, we now have to know about how to make simple dialogues in Swahili. You start with hujambo for hello. You start with habari yako for how are you. You start with asanti sana for thank you so much. You start with tafadhali for please. And these are just the main or the basic ones that you have to remember. And with time, you are able to get better with your Swahili. In case you want to get a copy of the notes, let me know and I will send a copy of the notes to you. Let me know. I will send a copy of the notes and you can write to black.fireafrica@gmail.com. Black.fireafrica@gmail.com. Till next time, Martin Salam. Say kwaheri.